Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Joy podcast. I'm your host, Ash Owen, and I cannot wait to find moments of joy with you today. If you don't already, head over to the Everyday Joy Facebook community group. Tell us what you got out of today's episode once you've finished listening to it. Or join up if you aren't already. Become a part of all the fun. I cannot wait to dive into today's words to live by.
But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. That's found in Matthew 6:33.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
So good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, gal.
I have to tell you a fun story. I actually don't know if I've told you this story yet.
Oh, we love new stories.
So we have just come off the back of our conference. We had our church mid-year conference. I'm trying to think of how else to describe it.
Church conference.
Church conference. And it was fantastic. We were running around. I barely saw you, even though we were staying at the same place.
Yeah,
but
true.
It was so great. But I had this super cool moment, and I hope she's listening, because I'm literally like standing, worshiping, like singing. And I don't even know if worship had finished at this point. And I got introduced to this girl at the front, and I was like, hi, like, so nice to meet you. And she was like, hi, are you Ash, like from the Everyday Joy podcast? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, I like listen to your podcast every day.
Oh.
And she was like, it's how I've learned about the Bible, like all these things. Turns out someone from our church had like a German nanny, like an au pair, come stay with them. It's like a distant family member.
Yeah.
Not a Christian, but this beautiful family from church were like, if you're going to nanny for us, you have to come to church.
Wow.
And so she's been like going on this journey. And anyway, like I didn't get enough chance to speak to her enough that I know her whole story.
That's amazing.
But yeah, she literally was like, you like have been encouraging me. And then my favorite thing was I saw her again before the conference finished, and she was like, please don't ever stop the podcast. She was like, when I go back to Germany, like I need to have this to like listen to. And my heart, I was just like,
so
oh my
special.
goodness. So if you're listening,
shout out
you know
to
who you are.
Oh,
thank you for listening, and I'll be praying for you as you go back to Germany and as you go back on this walk.
So exciting.
And, you know, I think that this verse, not that we dedicate episodes to anyone, but I think that like when you think about being a new Christian, when you think about like walking that life with God, you know, this verse, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all things will be given to you as well. Man, I've always sought God. I've always been a Christian. I've always loved Jesus, but I don't think I've ever prioritized him like I do now.
Yes.
And sometimes I wish I was more on fire for God, or I was more, sometimes I hate the word is on fire, but sometimes I wish I sought God's kingdom more as a young adult and as a teen, and didn't get embarrassed and didn't get nervous, and was bold to family members, and didn't get nervous about sharing God's good news with people. And so I think, this verse for me, it just shows me like how much, you know, I guess I've seen in my life that when I've sought God's kingdom, sometimes it can feel like a sacrifice, but it's always the best option.
So true.
And I think that, you know, at the end of the day, and I just keep having this like moment, and maybe I've learnt it from Tobes a little bit, is just like, at the end of the day, nothing else matters. Like honestly, at the end of the day, obviously, yes, family, yes, you know, all these things.
Yes.
However, at the end of the day, seeking God's kingdom and like telling people about Jesus, that's what matters.
So true.
It's truly like the only thing that I need to worry about. And not even then, don't even need to worry. The only thing I need to really care deeply about, you know, obviously God calls us to care for our families and you know, spouses and things, but like as in terms of like an active goal, seeking his kingdom is the goal.
Yes. And when we seek him first, everything else falls into place, right? Like everything else in our life, it just flows. There's so much ease. Like when we lift our eyes even from the things around us or our worries, and we lift our eyes up and we seek Christ in everything, then all of those worries or fears or doubts, like he gives us everything we need in that. And I love that so much about that verse as well.
I really feel like as well, this verse shows us that like God, like God needs us to seek him. I think that it's so easy just to be like, oh, well, God just has to reveal himself. Oh, God just has to do this for me. Oh, God just has to do this. But kind of like in our episode about discipline, like God honors discipline. God honors sacrifice. He loves to see people seek his kingdom, and not because he wants people to be, down and out and struggling or anything, but because living a life of sacrifice is what we're called to. And so I think seeking first his kingdom, God goes, okay, put it all aside, seek me. It doesn't actually matter all the other things that you think are important right now.
Totally. Yeah.
But seeking me.
Yeah. I think that even just distraction is such a tool of the enemy sometimes, is like we get so caught up in our study or at work or going to those next goals, whether it's like fitness or finance or whatever. And then we blink and like 5 years has passed and we're like, what have we actually done that has eternal weight?
Yeah.
Like what have we done for the kingdom of God? And you're so right that it takes sacrifice. It takes laying down our own desires, our own needs, the things that feel important to us, and being like, God, I place you intentionally above all else.
Yeah. I love what you were saying before. Like sometimes it's just busyness. I remember hearing a preacher say once, like I remember hearing a preacher say once, if the enemy can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. And it's like the truest thing I've ever heard, right?
Yes.
Because, we can live this kind of life where we don't actually acknowledge God for so long because we're busy, because life is full, because we're so blessed in where we live.
Yes.
And so it actually takes seeking his kingdom. It takes
does.
surrendering it. It takes choosing him again and again and again.
Yeah.
But I just love that,
wow.
I don't know, that we get to seek him.
Yes.
Isn't that so cool?
Yeah, that God's given us that free will or that choice. Like he knows what's best for us, and he could have forced us. Yeah. But like out of his love, he's like given us that opportunity to figure it out on our own. Like I know even in my own walk, like especially in busyness, like I've just stepped out of around 3 years in
full on corporate
world, doing the commute for 2.5 hours every day, plus a really, long hours, long working. I would get home exhausted. Yeah. Weeknights would be a write-off. I'd often be working on weekends. And I had this moment where like the Holy Spirit kind of slapped me around a little bit. And I was like, wait.
Love a holy slap.
Like a holy slap, yeah. We'll dub that as a term. But I just had this moment where I was like, where am I using my gifts that God has given me? I was thinking about the parable of, the master with the servants and giving these servants different gifts to go away and invest while he comes. And this one servant had just kind of hid his gifts, like all the talent in the ground and hidden it and hadn't multiplied that for in the kingdom is what Jesus was talking about there. And I was thinking about the gifts that God had given me and like my character and I was like, hang on, like what am I doing for the kingdom? Like, am I using this for, any sort of eternal purpose at all? And because of my busyness, I found myself, getting off the train, rushing to work, ignoring everyone around me. I wouldn't even say good morning to like a cleaner or the train person or whatever. And I became a shell of myself working towards something that didn't actually matter in an eternal perspective. And I had this moment of like, I'm not doing anything for the kingdom. Like, what am I doing? What am I using my gifts for? And it was nothing because I was so preoccupied with superficial things. Having that moment where God showed me that and being like, I've called you to more than that. And it did take sacrifice. It took, not everyone's called to make huge life-changing decisions. Yeah. But for me, I was like, I care more about my character and who I am and, getting to love on people like Christ loved us more than the busyness or the accolades that a fancy career in corporate could afford.
Wow. We were kind of joking earlier how, we were saying that, when you applied for that job, you were actually meant to it was only for a traineeship, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So you kind of got this traineeship job.
Yes.
Oh, no, sorry. You explain the story.
It was like a grad program. So when I was first looking at entering advertising, which is a very competitive industry, particularly as a creative, I was like, Lord, like fresh out of uni, it's really hard to get a job. And I was like, Lord, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've just moved into state for a job that I don't have. I have no money, like whatever. And I applied like last minute to this grad program that I found out that it wasn't even necessarily my dream, but it was like moving around different departments.
It was a step in the right
like,
direction.
Yeah, figuring it out. And I applied like the day before it closed, and then I found out that I got into the grad program, which was so cool. And then like literally the week before I started working, they were like, oh no, we're just going to give you your dream job, which was like, being a creative in advertising.
Which isn't that nuts?
Bizarre.
You go from being like, I'm going to take the baby step, and God's like, no, here's your dream job.
Here's like
straight out of university.
Yeah, totally.
But we were kind of laughing because we were like, isn't it wild the way God does things, right? And, we were kind of saying, you've left that space now. When I look at what God's done in your life over the last few years, it's like God has really worked it all out. Like in the sense of we were kind of laughing. We're like, if you only got given the kind of, traineeship role, it might have taken you a lot longer to step into your dream job.
Yes.
And if it took you, let's say, another 3 years to step into your dream job, to then work towards something that you found out so quickly that you didn't love.
It wasn't the right fit, yeah.
And it's crazy that God goes, no. Even in the icky, even in the hard, like seeking his kingdom always ends up in a good place. Completely. And at the time, with works not working out and being really hard, you probably would have been like, Lord, this is the last thing I want right now. Like, this is hard.
Yeah.
But to kind of go, oh, like now with hindsight, seeing what God has done, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Just to see the goodness of God. I think you're so right that I think that the fruits that God's given me from my time in that industry has been so beautiful. But also you're so right. Like if God hadn't fast tracked me into like the dream job immediately, it would have taken me so much longer to figure out that, hey, this isn't quite right. And so it's almost like God cared about me enough to give me the path that I needed. The hard
couple
stuff
of years
to figure it out so that I could really step into where he's called me to be.
So
and now
cool.
I have so much more time and so much more, this season of rest for me has been so beautiful because I can step into things like volunteering and really just being a good friend and being aware of, things and areas that I wasn't so good at because I was so consumed by the busyness and consumed by the things that didn't have eternal weight for God's kingdom.
Wow. You're amazing. So cool. Matthew 6 verse 33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. I love that Mahala was kind of saying not everyone is going to be called to just quit their job and leave. We're not saying that. But what we are saying is seeking God's kingdom is never a bad idea. The sacrifices, the frustrations, those teething pains of walking in what God has for you is never bad in the long run. Remember that next time you're making a decision or a sacrifice for God, that it all works out for good. Cannot wait to dive even deeper into the Word of God with you tomorrow, but until then, I pray you're able to find moments of joy.